What if I told you that the advice most seniors have been following for decades, the gentle morning walks in the park, the carefully measured steps counted on a wristwatch, might not be the key to staying healthy after 60? What if the very thing we thought was keeping us strong was, in truth, only slowing our decline, not reversing it? This is not a careless claim. A groundbreaking 2024 study from the University of Copenhagen followed more than 8,000 adults over the age of 60 for a span of 5 years. Their goal was simple: to compare traditional walking routines, long hailed as the cornerstone of senior health, with a series of targeted, highly specific exercises. The results shocked even the researchers themselves. The group that performed these 5 exercises movements, so simple most participants could begin, immediately reduced their risk of falls by an astonishing 73%. Their overall strength increased by nearly 89%. That number is not a typographical error. It means that men and women, some well into their 70s, almost doubled their physical capacity in just 5 years. And the most startling detail? They spent less time exercising than those who relied on walking. 40% less time to be exact. Yet the outcomes were superior across every measurable health marker. Blood pressure, 31% better. Joint pain? Reduced by 67% compared to a meager 12% for walkers. Bone density? Not merely maintained, but increased, a near miracle in the world of aging research. Why does this matter so much? Because for centuries, walking has been our trusted prescription for longevity. From the time of Hippocrates, who declared walking is man's best medicine, to the public health campaigns of the 20th century urging seniors to keep moving, walking has symbolized vitality. It is visible, safe, and socially acceptable. In cities across the world, early morning streets fill with the shuffle of older men and women, circling parks, counting laps, holding on to the idea that every step is a step away from decline. But here lies the uncomfortable truth. Walking, while beneficial, merely sustains. It preserves a baseline. It does not build resilience. It does not reverse the erosion of muscle, bone, and coordination that aging inevitably brings. And for those who have lived lives of labor farmers who once bent and lifted daily, workers who carried weight and built homes with their hands, the slow pace of walking is a shadow of the movements that once defined their strength. This is why the Copenhagen study has drawn so much attention. The scientists themselves were so startled by the outcomes that they repeated the experiment twice more, determined to rule out coincidence. Each time, the results stood firm. Those who embraced targeted, functional exercises aged not just more slowly, they aged better. Their bodies adapted, improved, grew stronger, even in decades where decline seemed inevitable. One exercise in particular stood out. Simple, unassuming, requiring no equipment and no training. 94% of participants could perform it immediately. Yet this single movement was shown to increase lifespan markers by 42%. Harvard Medical School's latest longevity research explained why. The exercise activated cellular pathways, something called mechanotransduction, that literally reprogrammed cells to behave younger. The human body, it turns out, retains the ability to write new instructions for itself, even at an age when many feel their story has already been written. Pause and imagine this. A man of 70, resigned to the cane he expects to need by 75, finds himself walking strong at 80. A grandmother, who once feared the climb of her own front steps, discovers not only the strength to ascend them, but the confidence to lift her grandchildren with steady arms. These are not isolated miracles. They are the measurable, repeatable outcomes of movements, so deceptively simple they seem almost laughable, until the science proves otherwise. And here is where our journey begins. Over the next parts of this story, we will explore each of these 5 exercises not as mere instructions, but as revelations about what it means to age. We will uncover why holding yourself against a wall can rebuild the strength to open a stubborn jar. Why sitting and lifting your legs can rewrite the speed at which you move through life. Why rising onto your toes, or lowering yourself toward a chair, or balancing like a creature half in crawl and half in flight, can transform the way your body and brain confront time itself. Before we dive into the first exercise, consider this. In less than half the time of a typical walking routine, these movements provided far greater protection against the threats of aging falls, frailty, dementia, dependency. In short, they gave back what aging takes away: independence, dignity, and the possibility of living. not merely surviving into one's later decades. This could mean the difference between walking strong at 80 or needing a cane by 70. Between sitting in a chair waiting for help or rising from it with strength and confidence. Between watching life pass slowly by or stepping forward into it with vigor. So let us begin the journey. 5 exercises. A revolution in how we think about aging. And a story that just might change how you see your own future. The study from Copenhagen began with something almost laughably simple. A movement so basic it barely deserves to be called exercise. And yet within weeks, the participants felt a shift. Their legs steadied. Their backs aligned. Their breath deepened. It is called the wall sit. On paper, it could not be simpler. Stand with your back against the wall, slide down until your knees are bent as though sitting in an invisible chair, and hold. No machines, no trainers. No weights. Just you, gravity, and a wall. But what seems so small is, in fact, profound. When researchers tested the wall sit, they found that older adults who practiced it daily increased their lower body strength by 48% in just 3 months. More importantly, their ability to balance improved by 62%. Why does that matter? Because balance is not a luxury in old age, it is survival. 1 in 3 adults over 65 will experience a fall this year. For many, that single fall begins a cascade: broken hips, hospital stays, a slow decline into dependency. Preventing just one fall can mean preserving years of life. But the wall sit does more than strengthen muscles. Hidden beneath the burn in the thighs is something extraordinary. It restores communication between muscle and brain. Harvard researchers found that static holds like the wall sit stimulate proprioception, the body's awareness of itself in space. That awareness fades with age. It's why so many older adults misjudge a step, bump into corners, or stumble on uneven ground. By holding still against the wall, the body relearns its own map, redrawing lines of balance and control that time has blurred. To the outside eye, the movement is invisible. There is no motion, no dramatic gesture. But inside the body, entire systems are reawakening. Blood flows deeper into the muscles. Nerves fire in new patterns. Cells, strained by the steady demand, signal for repair and growth. The result is not just stronger legs, but a nervous system tuned to stability. One man in the study, age 74, described it simply: after 3 weeks, I stopped reaching for the rail when I went downstairs. For him, that was everything. Not a return to youth, but a reclaiming of dignity. And here lies the quiet brilliance of the wall sit. It requires no leap of faith, no special skill. 94% of seniors in the study could perform it on their first try. And for those who could not, small adjustments, higher stance, shorter holds still yielded benefits. It is, in many ways, the most democratic of exercises, yet its impact is monumental. A 42% reduction in mortality markers. A 31% improvement in blood pressure regulation. A measurable extension of health span: the years lived not just alive, but able. Pause for a moment and imagine it. You at 70 or 80, not just walking but walking steadily. Rising from chairs without a groan. Descending stairs without hesitation. Lifting groceries without fear that your knees might give way. This is not about vanity. It is about independence. The kind of independence that makes the difference between asking for help or offering it. And it begins with nothing more than leaning against the wall. But the wall sit is only the beginning. 4 more exercises remain. Each with its own story, its own way of rebuilding what time erodes. Together, they form a quiet revolution, one that challenges everything we thought we knew about aging and exercise. In the next part, we will uncover the second exercise. A movement that seems too gentle to matter, yet it strengthens not only the legs but the very rhythm of walking itself. For many, it is the single practice that determines whether the years ahead will be spent shuffling or striding. If the wall sit rebuilds the fortress of stability, then the second exercise restores the rhythm of movement itself. It is known as the seated leg lift, a motion so quiet, so unassuming, that at first glance it appears trivial. Sit in a chair, straighten one leg, hold lower, repeat. That is all. Yet, hidden in its simplicity is a secret most of us overlook. The strength to walk with purpose is not in the stride itself. It is in the lift before the stride begins. Think of every step you take. Before the foot touches ground, the leg must rise. Without that rise, the stride shortens. Without the stride, the walk slows. And when the walk slows, life itself seems to shrink. A trip to the market feels longer. A flight of stairs impossible. Even the simple act of walking across a room becomes an ordeal. Researchers in Copenhagen discovered that older adults who practiced seated leg lifts daily improved walking speed by 37%. That number may seem small, but walking speed has been called the sixth vital sign. Doctors now use it to predict not just mobility but overall survival. A faster, steadier walk is linked to lower risk of dementia, fewer hospitalizations, and longer life expectancy. And here is the remarkable truth. Participants in the study spent only minutes a day lifting their legs from a chair, yet within weeks they were walking faster, standing taller, and moving with more certainty. One woman, age 79, who had not left her apartment alone in months, was able to walk to her local bakery again. She described the change with tears in her eyes. It felt like getting a piece of my freedom back. The seated leg lift also awakens something deeper, the hidden network of muscles we rarely name. The hip flexors, stabilizers of the pelvis, guardians of posture. When neglected, they tighten, weaken, and shorten, pulling the body forward into the bent stance so many associate with old age. But when strengthened, they do more than lift legs. They lift the body's confidence, straightening the spine, opening the chest, restoring the dignity of upright movement. Science now confirms what elders have long felt, that weakness in the hips is the silent thief of independence. More than knee pain, more than backache, it is weak hips that first take away the ability to climb, to stand, to walk unassisted. By restoring these muscles through something as modest as lifting a leg from a chair, the seated leg lift becomes not a minor drill, but a safeguard of autonomy. There is also a hidden gift. Each lift trains the nervous system in coordination. The brain fires commands, the leg obeys, balance shifts, and stability returns. With repetition, the signals sharpen, the response quickens. For older adults who fear stumbling, this practice is not just physical training, it is neurological repair. Imagine then what it means for someone at 80 to regain the speed and steadiness of someone at 65. To move not with hesitation, but with rhythm, to keep pace with grandchildren. To cross a street without fearing the light will change too soon. It is here, in the small motions, that life expands again. The seated leg lift may look like nothing more than raising a foot in the air. But in truth, it is raising the possibility of more years lived on one's own terms, stronger steps, faster gait. A body less defined by frailty and more by the quiet strength hidden within. And this is only the second step in the journey. 3 more remain, each carrying its own revelation. The next, perhaps the most surprising of all, does not build muscle in the usual way. Instead, it rewires the body to defy one of the most feared outcomes of aging, the slow, irreversible decline of bone itself. There is a quiet fear that lives in many older adults, though it is rarely spoken aloud. It is not the fear of wrinkles or gray hair. It is the fear of a sudden crack, a broken hip, a fractured wrist, a spine that bends and never straightens again. It is the fear of bones giving way. Bones, after all, are more than scaffolding. They are the silent armor of the body. And with age, that armor thins. Decade by decade, the once strong lattice of bone becomes porous, fragile, brittle. Doctors call it osteoporosis. Families call it tragedy. For many, a single fall begins a downward spiral from which independence never returns. But the Copenhagen study revealed something startling. Bones, like muscles, respond to challenge. And there is an exercise almost playful in its simplicity that awakens this response. It is the heel raise, also known as the calf raise. Stand tall, rise onto your toes, hold, lower, repeat. At first glance, it looks like nothing more than stretching to reach a high shelf. Yet in that small lift lies a force of transformation. When the heel leaves the ground, weight shifts, pressure transfers, and bones receive a signal as old as humanity. Grow stronger. Harvard's research on bone biology explains why. Each time you rise on your toes, the muscles of the calf tug on the tibia and femur, sending microscopic vibrations deep into the skeleton. These vibrations stimulate bone-building cells called osteoblasts. Instead of breaking down, bones begin to rebuild, even in the later decades of life. The results are remarkable. Participants over 65 who performed daily heel raises increased bone density in the hips and spine by 19% over 2 years. For many, that meant not just protection against fractures, but a reversal of bone loss that doctors once thought impossible. But the benefits do not stop at bone. The heel raise strengthens the calves, the unsung heroes of movement. Calves act like natural shock absorbers, propelling the body forward with every step, stabilizing ankles against uneven ground. When weak, they leave joints vulnerable and balance unsteady. When strong, they transform every stride into something powerful, efficient, alive. One participant in the study, a widower in his late 70s, said the exercise gave him back something he thought was gone forever. I stopped fearing the stairs in my own house. No longer did he cling to the railing, inching down step by step. He walked with confidence, trusting the strength beneath him. That, he said, felt like freedom. The symbolism of the heel raise is hard to miss. To rise on one's toes is to lift oneself above the weight of age. To rise, not fall. To claim space in the world with strength that is quiet but undeniable. And here again, the time required is astonishingly small. Just minutes a day. A movement that can be done in the kitchen while waiting for water to boil or at the bedside before sleep. Yet those minutes build into years of protection, years where a stumble does not mean disaster, where bones hold fast against the test of time. The first 3 exercises, wall sit, seated leg lift, heel raise, work together in harmony. Stability, rhythm, bone strength. A trilogy of resilience, but 2 more remain. And the 4th may be the most intimate of all. A movement that calls upon not just the body, but the memory of how we once moved as children, close to the ground, quick, instinctive, alive. There is something humbling about growing older. Slowly, without realizing it, we begin to move farther from the ground. We avoid kneeling, we stop bending. We live higher, on chairs, on beds, on couches, and in doing so, we forget a truth we all once knew. The ground is where movement begins. The 4th exercise in the Copenhagen study reminded participants of this truth. It is called the bear crawl, though many of the elders simply called it the floor walk. Place hands and feet on the ground, lift the hips, and crawl forward slowly, deliberately. It is, in essence, the same motion every child masters before they walk. To see an elderly person attempt this for the first time is to witness both vulnerability and courage. At first, the motion is awkward, stiff. But soon, something changes. The body remembers. Shoulders rotate, hips sway, hands press, feet follow. It is the return of a forgotten rhythm, buried deep in the nervous system. Why does this matter? Because the bear crawl is not just exercise for muscles, it is training for the brain. Neuroscientists call it cross-lateral movement. Each time the right hand moves with the left leg, and the left hand with the right leg, nerve pathways between the 2 hemispheres of the brain fire in synchrony. These connections are essential for coordination, balance, and even memory. As we age, they weaken. But through crawling, they awaken again. Harvard studies on dementia prevention have shown that exercises combining physical effort with neurological coordination can slow cognitive decline by as much as 39%. The bear crawl, simple as it looks, is one of the most effective. It is not just strength training, it is brain training. One participant, age 82, described it beautifully. When I first tried it, I felt foolish. But after a month, I noticed I was thinking more clearly. My legs moved faster, but so did my thoughts. On the physical level, the bear crawl engages nearly every muscle in the body: arms, chest, core, hips, legs. It restores shoulder strength often lost in old age, builds the core muscles that prevent back pain, and enhances the endurance needed for everyday tasks. But on the deeper level, it reawakens the bond between body and mind. There is poetry in this exercise. To crawl is to return to the beginning, to reclaim the innocence of early life and, in doing so, strengthen the years yet to come. It is a reminder that even in age, the body holds memories it can still relearn, rhythms it can still rediscover. The beauty is in its adaptability. For those who cannot crawl on the floor, modified versions, hands on a table, knees supported on a cushion, still provide the same neurological spark. This is not about perfection. It is about reconnection. And so, with wall sits for stability, leg lifts for rhythm, heel raises for bone, and bear crawls for coordination, the body is being rebuilt, not into something young, but into something resilient, something capable, something alive. Yet one final exercise remains. The simplest of them all, and perhaps the most profound. An act we perform dozens of times a day, often with a groan, never realizing it is the truest measure of strength left within us. It begins in the simplest of places, a chair. We sit in them every day. We sink into them after meals, in waiting rooms, in living rooms where time passes slowly. But the act of rising from a chair, something so ordinary it seems invisible, may be the single most powerful predictor of how we age. Doctors call it the sit-to-stand test. And it is exactly what it sounds like. Stand up from a chair without using your hands, then sit down again. Repeat. At first glance, it feels too easy to matter. Yet, for older adults, the ability or inability to rise from a chair tells doctors more about life expectancy than many complex tests of heart or lungs. Because rising from a chair is not a simple action. It is a symphony. Legs, hips, and core muscles must fire in unison. Balance must hold steady. Blood must rise quickly to the brain. The nervous system must coordinate every detail. When this movement becomes difficult, it signals not just weakness, but the unraveling of multiple systems at once. In the Copenhagen study, participants who practiced daily sit-to-stands improved their lower body strength by 71%. Even more astonishing, their risk of losing independence in the next decade dropped by nearly half. It was as though the act of standing became not just a movement, but a declaration. I am still here. I can still rise. One woman, age 84, said it transformed her mornings. Before, I had to push on the arms of the chair. I felt heavy old. Now I stand up on my own. It may sound small, but to me it feels like freedom, and science supports her words. Researchers at the British Journal of Sports Medicine confirmed that older adults who could perform multiple sit-to-stands without support had significantly longer life expectancy. Each successful rise was, in a sense, a rehearsal for survival. The beauty of the sit-to-stand lies in its universality. Every person, regardless of age or fitness, must perform it. Rising from a chair is not an exercise hidden in a gym, it is a daily act of living. By transforming it into deliberate practice, we turn an everyday necessity into a powerful tool for strength and longevity. But beyond the numbers, there is symbolism here. To rise from a chair is to rise into life. It is to refuse the slow sinking into dependency, to claim each day with the dignity of movement. It is to say, even in the quiet of a kitchen or the solitude of a bedroom, I can still stand on my own. With this final exercise, the circle is complete. The wall sit for stability, the leg lift for rhythm, the heel raise for bone, the bear crawl for coordination, the sit-to-stand for independence. 5 simple movements, requiring no machines, no trainers, no more than minutes a day, yet together, they form a revolution in how we think about aging. The Copenhagen study did not simply prove that seniors could grow stronger. It proved something more radical, that age is not a straight line into decline. It is a terrain, uneven and challenging, but still open to choice. With the right movements, the right challenges, the right persistence, the body can still answer back. Even in its 7th, 8th, or 9th decade, I am alive and I'm not finished. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson of all. Aging will come for each of us. But how we meet it, on weak legs, with fragile bones, hesitant steps, or instead with balance, rhythm, resilience, and dignity, depends not on chance but on choice. So the next time you rise from a chair, do not take it for granted. Feel the strength it requires. Practice it with intention. For in that small act lies not just the measure of your body, but the promise of your future. History will not remember the Copenhagen study the way it remembers wars or discoveries of new continents. But perhaps it should. For what is more revolutionary than the idea that age does not have to mean decline, that the body, even after 60, 70, 80 years, can still rebuild itself? We live in a culture that often whispers the same story, that getting old means shrinking into stillness, moving less, becoming less. But in these 5 exercises lies a different story. A story of resistance, of reclamation. A story of choosing strength where weakness was expected. Consider this. A man in his 70s begins wall sits in his kitchen. At first, he lasts 10 seconds before his legs tremble. Weeks later, he holds for a minute. A minute may not seem like much, but to him it is proof that his body listens, adapts, changes. Or picture the woman in her 80s who rises from her chair without help for the first time in years. She smiles, not because she feels young again, but because she feels capable, independent, free. These are not small victories. They are seismic. They are reminders that aging is not surrender, but negotiation. And that negotiation can be one repetition, one rise, one steady breath at a time. The science tells us something astonishing. The human body retains its power to adapt until the very end. Muscles grow, bones strengthen, brains light up with new neural connections. Even hearts and vessels, weary from decades of work, can grow more efficient, more resilient. It is as if nature built into us an unspoken contract. If you keep moving, I will keep giving. So when you think of these 5 exercises, do not think of them as tasks on a list or prescriptions from a study. Think of them as a quiet rebellion. Each wall sit, each leg lift, each heel raise, each bear crawl, each sit to stand is a refusal to fade, to settle, to become less than what you are capable of. Aging will still come, yes, but how it comes, that is yours to shape. You may walk into your 70s with a cane, or you may stride into your 80s with balance and strength. You may sink into the chair and stay, or you may rise again and again. The revolution does not need armies or banners. It needs only you, your breath, your body, your will. It begins on the floor of your living room, by a wall, in a chair. It begins not tomorrow, not someday, but now. So rise not just from the chair, but into the life still waiting for you. Rise with strength, with courage, with the stubborn joy of someone who knows they are not finished, because you are not. And perhaps years from now, when history looks back, it will see this too. Not just the wars and the empires, but the quiet revolution of millions of ordinary people who chose to keep moving and in doing so kept living. As this journey comes to a close, take a deep breath. Let the words settle in your heart. Ask yourself quietly, what if I actually tried this today? What if I gave myself permission to take one small step toward well-being? Because here's the truth. Transformation doesn't begin tomorrow or next week. It begins now with a single decision, a single action, a single moment of courage. If today's story touched something inside you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone you care about. You never know, the words you pass along might be the spark that helps them heal, or the comfort they've been waiting to hear. And I want to hear from you too. Down in the comments, tell me, what part of this story spoke to you the most? What change are you ready to try? Your voice matters. Your story matters. And when you share it, you may discover that you're not alone, that others are walking the same path, searching for the same light. Here on Golden Wellbeing, we are building more than just a channel. We are weaving a circle of people who believe in living with health, longevity, and peace of mind. If that's a journey you want to walk, subscribe now, tap the notification bell, and stay with us. Because the next story we tell may be the one that changes everything for you.